Imagine standing on the edge of a mountain battlefield. Dust fills the air. The ground trembles beneath the movement of hundreds of warriors. The sun hangs heavy over the desert. And in that moment, something shocking happens. The army that believed victory was guaranteed begins to fall apart. Confusion spreads, fear rises, and the unthinkable begins to circulate through the battlefield. A whisper, then another, then suddenly a cry echoing across the valley. The prophet has been killed. For a moment, hope collapses. This is the story of one of the most painful days in early Islamic history, the day of the Battle of Uhud. But what if this devastating defeat was not simply a tragedy? What if it was a divine lesson? What if the blood-stained slopes of Mount Uhud were actually teaching something deeper about faith, resilience, and survival? And what if the struggles you face today mirror that same moment in history? Because sometimes the greatest victories begin with devastating setbacks. The world before Uhud. To understand the lessons of Uhud, we have to go back to the fragile early years of the Muslim community. Only a short time earlier, something extraordinary had happened. A small group of believers had achieved an impossible victory at the Battle of Badr. Against overwhelming odds, the Muslims defeated a much larger army. For the believers, it felt like a miracle. For their enemies in Mecca, it felt like humiliation. The Quraysh were furious. They could not allow this defeat to stand. So they began preparing for revenge. A massive army was assembled. 3,000 warriors, experienced fighters, horsemen, archers, weapons, armor, everything necessary to crush the growing Muslim community in Medina. And leading this army was one of the most brilliant military commanders of the time, Khalid ibn al-Walid. At that time, he had not yet embraced Islam, but his tactical brilliance would soon reshape the battlefield. Preparing for the battle, in Medina, the Muslims knew the attack was coming. The leader of the community, Muhammad, consulted his companions. Should they remain inside the city and defend it? Or should they go out and meet the enemy on the battlefield? After discussion, the decision was made. The Muslim army would march out. 700 believers prepared for battle. 700 against 3,000. It was not an easy choice, but they placed their trust in Allah. The battlefield would be the open valley near Mount Uhud. The Prophet carefully positioned his army. Behind them stood the mountain. In front of them, the approaching Quraysh army. But there was one critical strategic point, a small hill overlooking the battlefield. If enemy cavalry took that hill, they could attack from behind. So the Prophet appointed 50 archers. Their mission was simple: guard the hill, protect the army's rear. And he gave them one very clear instruction: do not leave your position. No matter what happens, even if you see us winning, even if you see us losing, do not leave. Those words would soon echo through history. The battle begins. The morning of battle arrived. The desert air was tense. Two armies faced each other. Steel clashed. Arrows flew. The battle erupted. At first, something incredible happened. The Muslim army began to win. The Quraysh forces started to retreat. Their lines were breaking. Their soldiers were fleeing. Victory seemed within reach. On the hill, the archers watched the battlefield below. They saw the enemy retreating. They saw weapons and armor being left behind. And they began to think something dangerous. The battle is over. Some of them argued. The enemy is defeated. Let us go collect the spoils. But their commander reminded them, the Prophet told us not to leave. Yet, many of them believed the battle had already been won. One by one, they left their positions, until only a small handful remained. And at that exact moment, Khalid ibn al-Walid saw the opportunity, the turning point. Khalid was watching the battlefield carefully. He noticed the hill. He noticed the archers leaving. And he understood immediately. The Muslim army had just exposed its greatest weakness. With incredible speed, Khalid led a cavalry charge around the mountain, straight toward the now undefended hill. The remaining archers were overwhelmed. The cavalry seized the high ground, and suddenly, the battlefield changed. From behind the Muslim army, the Quraysh cavalry attacked. Chaos erupted. The Muslims who believed victory was near suddenly found themselves surrounded. Confusion spread. Lines broke. Dust filled the air. Warriors struggled to understand what had happened. And in the chaos, the Prophet himself was injured. A stone struck his face. His helmet was driven into his cheek. Blood flowed down his face. And in that moment, a devastating rumor spread across the battlefield. The Prophet has been killed. The moment of despair. Imagine hearing those words. The man who brought the message of Islam, gone. For some believers, the shock was overwhelming. If the Prophet had died, what was the point of continuing the fight? Some soldiers froze. Others retreated. But a group of companions refused to surrender. They gathered around the Prophet, protecting him. They fought fiercely to defend him. Among the heroes of that day was one of the greatest warriors in Islamic history, Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. He had been fearless in battle, a lion among men, but during the chaos of Uhud, he was struck down. His death was a devastating loss for the Muslim community. The battlefield was now filled with grief, pain, confusion, and uncertainty. Eventually, the Muslims regrouped near the slopes of Mount Uhud. The Quraysh army, believing they had achieved their revenge, began to withdraw. The battle was over, but the emotional wounds would last far longer. Why did this happen? For many believers, the events of Uhud raised difficult questions. Why did Allah allow this defeat? Why did victory turn into disaster? The answer came through revelation in the Quran. The Quran explained that the setback was not random. It was a lesson, a reminder. Victory does not come from numbers. Victory does not come from weapons. Victory comes from obedience to Allah. And when the archers abandoned their position, they disobeyed a clear command. Even though their intentions seemed reasonable, even though they believed the battle was already won, that small moment of disobedience changed the entire course of the battle. But the lesson did not end there. The Quran also reminded the believers that hardship is part of faith. Even prophets and their companions faced trials. Even the strongest believers experience setbacks, because struggle is what builds strength.